unions indirectly, by virtue of benefiting their members, they also consciously try to do things proactively to benefit the broader working class, sometimes even at the expense of their members in the short term.
One of the reasons that we do the show is to try to educate folks about unions and unionism and, the benefit that unions have, not just for their members, but for society. Like, that's explicitly why I wanted to be so involved in unions. That's why I, wanted to become a steward in my union. That's why I wanted to serve on the labor council in the area. And really why I do what I do, because I do not believe that unions only serve their members. I do not believe that is their function in society. I think that that is a narrow view of unions and unionism that some people do hold, to be fair. Some people that are in unions and that are, outside of unions, they do hold that position. I do not hold that position. I do not think that definition of unions matches with their historical position in societies across the globe. But there are people that disagree with me, and here's one of them. Let's play this clip from Destiny on the place of unions in society.
You need to understand what things are designed to do based on who they work for and who's paying them, okay? Kind of the same thing, okay? So, for instance, when I talk about unions, okay? Unions do not exist to make America a better place. Unions don't exist to make people happier. They don't exist to help our country. Unions exist to represent employees. That's it. They represent the people that they represent. That's all, okay? Whatever group of employees. So in some cases it might be really good, in some cases it might be really bad, but that's what they do. That's all they do.
Yeah, so, that's his thinking. And like I said, there are some people inside of unions that do have that belief about what unionism is and kind of the driving force of unionism. And there's certainly something to be said about the importance of understanding incentives and the material positions in society of organizations, right? So you can understand why, let's say, a manufacturing union would oppose automation, even if as a whole, automation might be maybe better for society. Or you could understand why, some unions would oppose, a coal miners union might oppose a transition to, non-fossil fuel related energy, even though the mine workers in this country and in very many other countries actually do support a transition to cleaner energy. But you could understand why, based on their incentives, based on the members that they have. But it's also important to actually kind of be historically informed and take a look at the role that unions and unionism has played in society. And you are not able to account for the actions of unions and their impact on society by taking this narrow view of unions. You cannot account for the impact that unions have played in society by saying they only represent their members, nothing more, nothing less, in a very narrow sense. You just can't account for that, right? You can't account for the historical position of unions. Because what we have seen actually in particularly in upsurges of labor movements in the United States and elsewhere is that unions do not, in fact, only represent and only fight for their members. And I mentioned the mine workers a while ago, and I'll refer to them again because in the in the upsurge in the United States and again all over the world, In the upsurge in the United States, the mine workers played something of a vanguard role in the organization of other U.S. industries. In fact, the organization of the steel industry would not have been possible but for the investment of the UMW in the organization of the steel industry. And same with many other unions. You know, the textile industry was, the textile unionization was supported by the mine workers, and this happens, like I said, globally. We see mine workers not actually being conservative. We see mine workers actually being quite radical, kind of contrary to what how we imagine coal miners today. We see coal miners being extremely radical in their organization and in the things that they fight for. Now, you can say, if you wanted to, take this position and try to backpedal and say, well, look, it's good for the miners if other industries are organized. And so therefore, as miners try to help other workers in other industries organize, then they're also just only and narrowly benefiting their members. And, you could take that, and then I guess we're in agreement. We're just kind of saying different words. But what comes across when people say that, unions only benefit their members and they only work for their members, what comes across is that this person is putting forward a very narrow vision of unionism where, you do not look outside of your own local union halls when you think about what society ought to look like. And like I said, that is just simply not the historical place that unions have occupied in society. And it makes sense because of the structure of unions, right? Because the bedrock logic of unions and unionism is that we are stronger together. And so when you go through those collective struggles with people during contract campaigns, during union campaigns, you're standing up for one another, you're fighting for somebody that you don't know, that can and does change people. It changes their outlook. It gives them a more collective outlook. It breaks down individualism in, the kind of negative sense of only looking out for myself, right? If you see inside of your workplace the benefits of breaking down the view of individualism and fighting in a collective way, and it brings other people benefit and it brings you benefits and individually, then understandably and logically and not uncommonly, this results in a change in people. And they begin to see, they begin to have a collective outlook in other avenues of life. And they begin to want to flex their collective muscle and their collective power in other avenues. And that's why we see, universally, unions and labor movements that have success and that are able to organize a large number of workers begin to venture into politics and begin to try to sway the political process and make things more favorable, not just to their members, but also to the broader working class.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Oh, I'd also add a big thing that unions can do is affect wages for all workers.
Exactly.
So you got a union shop, they may change safety and wages for all the other even unrepresented not paying their dues folks. Those benefits can benefit the entire industry even.
Right.
They can lift up wages for a whole industry. Just let alone one union could do that. So
right.
It's whether they serve only their constituents in that union, they can have a big impact on the entire area.
Exactly. And I don't know that necessarily that he would disagree with that, but what I just want to get across to, folks who are listening to that and to folks who have this kind of narrow view of unions is that actually unions do indirectly, by virtue of benefiting their members, benefit society and benefit communities, but they also consciously try to do things proactively to benefit the broader working class. Sometimes even potentially you could imagine at the expense of their members in the short term. And you can see this in the United Mine Workers of America supporting a clean, a just transition. And there would be some people who would say narrowly that this might not be good for miners, but the UMWA only would support a just transition if there is adequate retraining or compensation for people who will be losing their jobs. We're seeing the UAW supporting a transition to electric vehicles because of the importance of combating climate change and things like this. It's important for folks to understand that for people to understand unions' broader place in society, because that is kind of the place that unions and unionism has had in society in the past, and it did make society better. And now the retort will come, well, how do you feel about cop unions? I've heard him say this before when he said this is something that he said multiple times, is that unions only represent their members, and so they can be good and they can be bad. And the way that you can know that is by asking people who are generally in favor of unions how they feel about cop unions. And the response to that is that, yes, cop unions generally have a negative impact on society, unfortunately. But that is because of, their structural place in society and the bad actions of the cop union movement do not negate the fact that the vast majority of the labor movement does operate in the way that I'm saying. But, cop unions, unfortunately, do have this very, very, very narrow view of unionism, and they only look out for themselves very much at the expense of everybody else. Very much at the expense of everybody else. They do not have a broader, and this is, kind of universal, not necessarily universally true of cop unions. I don't want to speak too broadly, because you can always find an example. If you say 100% of something, you can always find a counterexample. But it is very, very commonly true that cop unions do not operate, in the public interest. They operate, oftentimes opposed to the public interest. And so, you just kind of have to look at the structural position of police in society, and you can kind of work your way through why that makes sense. And there's police are set up, the way that we've set up police in this country is that they are in opposition to the rest of society. So, you can understand why their unions would operate that way. But it is not it does not contradict the broader thesis of unions having a broader place in society beyond representing their members.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.